Scientific ego is a very powerful thing, and it can cause people to say and do things that they would regret in the future. Why would anybody want someone to die of COVID or, on the other side, die of a vaccine complication? The reality is that everybody likes to be right. And so, for the unvaccinated, in order for, I guess, things to be proved, they have to be survive and things have to go wrong for the vaccinated. Conversely, for the vaccinated cohort, in order for them to be proved right, the unvaccinated have to die of COVID. And you have this very strange situation where something has to go pretty seriously wrong for someone else in order for you to be right. This is where I think it caught the attention or my attention from something that was said by Dr. Paul Offit. And he's a doctor in the United States. He's a physician with infectious diseases in the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And you can imagine that he has a lot of expertise in virology and immunology. He was also on the advisory committee for immunization practices. And this is where his comment about the recent decision, the removal of the vaccine recommendation for pregnancy, came about. And he clearly is upset about the decision because he's concerned that pregnant women are no longer as well protected as they were with regards to the vaccine recommendations. I will come to that in just a little. And I'll play with you a clip from his video where he speaks about that liability claim that could come. Before I start, just to remind you, as usual, staying ahead of the science, I'll be talking quite shortly about the COVID heart storm. Why this is going to be huge. Uncover the secret of scars in the heart. Click on the link in the description. Join me as we go through what are some of the mechanisms and the likely outcomes in the next few years with regards to ongoing circulation of COVID and impact on the heart. So let's get back to the question. Was the decision in the United States to remove the recommendation in pregnancy for COVID-19 vaccines them being forward thinking or them being behind the curve? This is where the question comes. And there's a reason, it's because there were risks with regards to pregnancy. But what I'll point out is, are the risks the same today as they were in 2021? That's an important question. But let's listen to what was said by Paul Offit, as I had mentioned before. Now, I got this from Twitter. This is from the Chief Nerd. I like to always highlight the people who have shared the clip. And this is what it was that he said in the video. You can just listen to what he had to say here.
So practically, what do you think will be the outcomes of pregnant women not being able to get vaccinated against COVID?
What you'd like to see is you would like to see what is inevitable happening, which is that a pregnant person gets COVID, suffers severely, or dies, and then there's a lawsuit.
Just pausing you right there. That's exactly what it was that he said. Someone gets sick or dies, and then there is a lawsuit. In effect, that's what they need to happen in order for them to break through with regards to the narrative. And this is why I'm saying that even though you may think it, you should put it aside. It's like trying to be right and somebody dying of cancer because you want to be right. It's that kind of situation. You don't actually want someone to die. But listen to what else he had to say.
Against the federal government, saying that I couldn't get this, I couldn't afford the vaccine, and I couldn't pay for it, and my insurance company wouldn't pay for it, and my doctor was scared to give it. And now, I've suffered, or in the case of the family, this person has died, and they sue the federal government for what should be an obviously winnable lawsuit, which is that every other country considers this to be a high-risk condition. We don't. You made it much more difficult for me to get this vaccine, and I'm going to sue you for it.
So practically, what do you think will be?
So I think that this is part of the problem, is that, and I saw this happen early in the pandemic, and I realized there's fundamentally a problem here. And this is why I keep going on and on about it. If you don't understand a disease, please don't go mandating stuff because you don't know the implications. And so part of the issue here is that what he is effectively saying is that largely the benefits are so high that they outweigh any potential risks that could come to the mother or the infant or fetus. I think that there are not enough long term studies. That's one part of the problem. The second part of the problem is for anybody who understands the mechanism of severe COVID 19, for which I'm doing a lot of research now, and looking at how the link to a delayed interferon response. And this is why pregnancy had a higher risk to some degree, because in pregnancy, their interferon is already suppressed. And so this would have been augmented by the virus. Additionally, I've always highlighted ACE2, free ACE2 in the bloodstream being a trigger for autoimmune responses. And again, in pregnancy, they have higher levels of ACE2, especially if they are older, if they are obese, if they have diabetes, hypertension, or some of these chronic conditions which made them higher risk anyway. And so part of the problem is that they did this without delineating that risk. It's not the same across all pregnancies, meaning a 22-year-old lady who is fit and well, healthy, is not the same risk as a 37-year-old overweight pregnancy with diabetes and hypertension. This kind of risk stratification is not being done, and it's leading to part of the problem. He made the point that the United States, in terms of the first world, is probably the only country that is not recommending vaccination for pregnancy. And even when you look at the CDC site, pregnancy and vaccination, at this point, you can see here, it's the June 17th, 2024. They haven't updated it yet. COVID-19 vaccine recommendations, and it points out that the vaccine recommendations have recently been updated for some populations. This page will be updated to align with the latest immunization schedule. And you can see from this here, as you go down, that COVID vaccines are not harmful for pregnant women and their babies. The experts carefully reviewed the available safety data before recommending any vaccines during pregnancy. So from their point of view, this is safe, it is effective. Why would you not give it to pregnant women when you consider, actually I have to say pregnant people, don't I? When you consider the fact that other countries are doing it. As I said, if people took more time to sharpen their axe, spend more time understanding pathophysiology, trying to figure out why it isn't random, and who is most affected and why they're most affected, it would make people stop acting in fear and be much more scientific. So when we look at what happened, say, in terms of the UK, this is some data from the Embrace UK maternal report. And it's showing you here rate of mortality per 100,000. And you can see thrombosis here is the highest. And then right behind it is COVID-19, then cardiac disease, then psychiatry, then sepsis. So you would look at this and say, oh my goodness, this is clearly very high risk. It's important to note that this data is from the year 2020 to 2022. Now, as I have pointed out many times, once the population has been exposed to the virus and everybody has some degree of mucosal immunity, you are not going to see the same type of presentation of severe COVID-19. Severe COVID-19 requires a very specific sequence of events to trigger at that cytokine storm. I'll not say autoimmune because it tends to throw people off. Just say the cytokine storm. It doesn't just happen randomly. One of the most important patterns with regards to the cytokine storm is that the virus has to get past your interferon response. It's very hard to do once the immune system, the mucosal immune system, has been primed to the virus. And this is part of the reason why we are not seeing the typical severe COVID-19 cases on intensive care, because the population has already been exposed to the virus, so it is no longer novel. When you look carefully at the data from the UK, it appears, and they haven't yet published the 2023, the 2022 to 24, but it appears that there aren't many COVID-19 deaths in pregnancy for that period. That would make perfect scientific sense. And so, therefore, if pregnant women are no longer dying of severe COVID, whether they are vaccinated or unvaccinated, have you adjusted your risk stratification profile, risk benefit, should they be inoculated? That's really all it's about. And so fundamentally, you have to wonder whether or not the CDC or the HHS with RFK have actually moved ahead with the science, recognizing that the risk profile is different now. And every time I look at the recommendations, and I'll go back to these recommendations, and I'm thinking to myself, so as it says here, COVID vaccines are not harmful for pregnant women and their babies. And I'm thinking to myself, do they understand this issue about autoimmunity and spike-related autoimmunity? Have they got any long-term studies? Or are we going to find 5 years down the line all kinds of strange things happening because immune systems have been primed? That's where we need more honesty, because the truth is, I would challenge anybody on this, you can't have long term until you've reached the long term. And we're still only 4 years in. So we really don't have any clear idea as to what the outcomes are. And so, therefore, in that context, where you have a cohort who may, let's just say may, be at risk for complications. We know there's myocarditis. There are many other complications. People may say they're rare, but if they are not dying of severe COVID, are you doing the right thing? Now, there are many reasons why they will argue that this should be done, including transfer of antibodies to the fetus and so on. I'm just saying, have they reassessed that risk properly from a perspective of understanding the characteristics of severe disease? That's where we are now. And as I have always said, those who are not keeping up with the science, not adjusting what they do based on where we are, can potentially do more harm to the population than good. They have to be challenged, even though they may not like it. It is just the reality of science. They have to prove their point, and I'm happy to challenge anyone on it. Just a reminder before we finish, look in the description for the link, COVID Heart Storm, Uncover the Secret Scars on the Heart. This is very important, and this is something that is likely to cause long-term issues if it is not addressed. Not sure if we can mitigate it, but we can potentially do things that will help to resolve some of the problems. Have a great evening, and we look out to sharing more up-to-date information for you.